Hello, SEIU members, sisters, and brothers. My name is Jana Blunt. I am our chapter president for the County of Sonoma chapter, SEIU 10-1. I work at the Sonoma County Recorder's Office. I'm not an employee of SEIU. I am a county employee just like you. This is a basic update video containing most of the information that I've been sharing in the Zoom informational meetings I've been hosting in the past few days. Because of the fact a lot of people can't make it on those specific dates and times, I wanted to make a video that could be played at any time. So it's going to be very low tech, but hopefully the information is useful to you. I'm going to try to start doing these regularly to give you guys the updates you need. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start off with the beginning, okay? All right. Again, real high-tech stuff here. Okay. So this is going to be our update. Today is Sunday, April 12th, 2020, Easter Day if you celebrate it, just to give you an idea of when this was that I made this. So there's going to be three main parts to this update. The first is going to be the safety concerns that have been reported to us as a union. If for some reason you feel that there are safety issues in your own department that have been unaddressed or ignored, please let me know personally. We'll get on it. We'll make sure that it gets fixed. The second of the three are union action. What is the union doing right now? What are they doing? Or I should say, what are we doing at this time? And then lastly, but most importantly to me, are a wealth of resources and information. So I hope you stick around for that part because it's going to include the different employee leaves that are available to you. So the primarily the safety concerns we've been seeing in most departments are all kind of centering around a delay in availability of personal protective gear, a delay in the training of how to use the gear or how to ensure that the gear is actually protecting you. There's a right and wrong way to wear nitrile gloves, for example. There's a right and wrong way to wear a mask. So those types of things are finally coming around. There was just a delay on getting them going. Also a delay on most of the office closures. Ideally, most of the closures that did occur could have happened earlier. And then for employees who are able to work at home because of the nature of their job, they're not all able to do that, either because there's an insufficient amount of VPNs or insufficient electronics. So maybe the person doesn't have a laptop and there's no laptop from the department that they can check out. So that's another issue we've been saying. We have higher risk departments. These are departments who have prolonged physical contact with the public. These are folks who are social workers. These are folks who work at the detention facility, the jail. These are folks in economic assistance. These folks are encountering or did encounter a delayed withdrawal from the one-on-one visits, a delayed withdrawal from physical contact and exposure requirements. There's going to be members who are going to have to continue to have physical contact with the clients because they are nurses or psychiatric techs. But for the folks whose offices could close and could postpone meetings and one-on-ones and check-ins, there was a delay. So this is primarily places like economic assistance, child protective services, adults and aging, the CSU, water agency, folks who are out in the field, along with parks and rec, and again, certain areas of the jail. From what we understand, this has all generally been resolved. So again, in either case, if you feel your department has not resolved these things, please let us know. So what are we doing about all this? We met with the county management this past Wednesday, the chapter board did, along with our field director. And we'd emailed prior to that, the week prior, our official demand to the county. This meeting was, the function of it was to talk about the demands. So big number one item was hazard pay, premium pay, specifically for employees who have prolonged physical contact. These are essential employees who are required to have contact with the public, including but not limited to folks in the Human Services Department, Department of Health, ISD, TPW, and anyone assigned to work in the Emergency Operations Center, a 25% premium pay. Again, these are folks who have physical contact with clients and the public, or at least they're extremely close to them physically. They're not 6 feet away, 13 feet away. The second tier would be a 10% premium pay for essential employees required to physically report to work, but thankfully have no direct contact with the public. So there's a lot of offices like mine where we're going in 1 or 2 days a week, and the rest of the week we're working from home, but somebody's got to go in and process mail and answer the phones. This would count along the lines of the 10%. So the county, the bad news is the county states that they're unable at this time to accommodate it due to revenue loss fears. No other counties nearby are offering hazard pay. Napa County was going to offer it, but they backed off when no other counties joined them. We told county management that we felt this was unacceptable. We're going to be meeting with them continuously, so this will be the big topic of discussion in these meetings. We feel there's got to be some way to compensate the members who are most in danger, and we're urging the county to remain creative in finding ways that this can be done. Between pay and accrual options, there's got to be some way. And the second piece was the personal protective equipment and training. Although many key departments and divisions did not provide these quickly enough, employees in all areas have reported this has been corrected to the best of my knowledge. However, we did tell the county that after all the crises we've encountered over the past few years, there's just no excuse as to why each department isn't stockpiling these specific safety materials anymore. We've submitted an information request regarding the current and future safety materials stock. And not to beat a dead horse, but we're relying on employees to let us know if their department management slips up again at any point when it comes to providing materials we need to stay safe. This isn't about being, calling anybody out. It's really important that everyone stays safe. The third piece we talked to the county about was overtime compensation. Hopefully you weren't affected by this, but during the Kincaid fire, certain departments did not properly compensate their staff for overtime worked. There wasn't anything in it that was malicious or intentional. It was just confusion over coding in TimeSaver. We're in an ongoing grievance about that with the county to get that fixed, but we needed to make sure that the county would explicitly ensure that staff will properly be paid overtime when applicable during our current crisis. They have guaranteed that those problems that occurred before will not happen again. So, in spite of that, we have to remain vigilant to ensure that's the case. But we got their verbal guarantee, which is something. Fourth piece, layoffs, including extra help. So the county states, good news, that they've got no intention to impose layoffs anywhere in the county. But, and we'll get into this in a bit, there's an end date on disaster pay not worked for extra help employees. So these are extra help employees who are stuck at home on call because they've got no physical place to report to. The office they work in is closed, or they don't have an assignment anywhere. Scheduled to work, but again, no way to telework, no place to show up. The last day would be the 20th of this month, April 20th. So that would be the last day those folks are getting disaster pay. The county states they're being firm at this point because they're, quote, going to be faced with many difficult budgetary decisions as time moves on. We've made it clear that we'll be following their staffing decisions closely and remaining involved in their decisions to ensure as many employees as possible keep their jobs or find new work elsewhere in the county. Don't be alarmed by this. It's just something that needs to be talked about. Again, they state they've got no intention to impose layoffs, but there's going to be a severe revenue shortage in comparison to what was expected to come in. Transient occupancy tax, which is folks who have Airbnbs or regular bed and breakfasts, even hotels, there's a large amount of tax that gets paid per bed. and there's not a lot of tourists here, ideally. So there's not a lot of those taxes being accrued. There's going to be certain folks who are able to get a delayed payment on their property taxes if they're facing hardship, and then sales tax is projected to fall as well. So the county has legitimate budgetary concerns, and that is why we need to be extra vigilant. There is a process in place for regular employees. When it comes to layoffs, there are meetings, there are notifications, and there is the enthusiastic attempt in getting them placed somewhere else in the county, at the very least. We'll keep you updated on that. The vacation time accrual. If you're part of the Facebook page, Stand Up Sonoma County, I posted about this today. Employees in our bargaining unit can bank up to 280 vacation hours. 280. If you're a supervisor, you can bank 360, which must be nice. If you are coming close to that cap, that 280 or 360, if you're coming close to it, you need to watch out. We have requested that they lift, even if it's temporarily, the cap on these hours because of the fact that again, the crises we've encountered over the past few years, there's a good amount of employees who have been unable or cautious about taking time off, either because they've got an increased workload, staffing issues, who knows what. There are plenty of employees who are taking this time as they should, but plenty who aren't. And if you reach that cap, you will no longer accrue hours. You will lose anything you've accrued. You got to make sure that you don't get too close to that cap. But in the meantime, we have requested that they lift the cap on vacation time accrual because there's not a lot of folks on vacation right now. We did ask the county to lift that cap. They denied our request, but the person who denied the request didn't have the authority to make that decision in the first place. So even though they told us they were uninterested in lifting this cap, again, it wouldn't really cost them the same as if they paid a premium, but okay. They denied this request. We've demanded two things in response to that. Number one, we need to get a list of the employees who are within 60 hours of reaching their caps, so we can personally contact each person to let them know of the danger that they're potentially in. But we have also demanded that our next meeting, we need the presence of someone who possesses the authority to actually raise that cap at our next meeting. So let's hope that they can handle that. In addition to the demand items that I mentioned before, a lot of times people don't realize, what are my union dues doing? What are they paying for other than the salaries of the staff who work at the union? And one gigantic thing that they're paying for is having an actual law firm on retainer to work on legal issues all the time. They're working their butts off all the time. It's important that we're able to get a clear definition of what an essential worker is. The reason is that definition has differed from the county when it comes to each of the different crises we've encountered. So it's important that definition becomes clear. So what the legal team is doing, what SEIU's counsel is doing, is researching what this means, researching prior case law, coming up with an official legal opinion as to what the word essential means when it comes to labor. And they're going to be presenting that to the county for any kind of rebuttal. It needs to be on the books and it needs to be agreed upon by both parties. The reason why this is important is because it can affect compensation, it can affect job security, it can affect who's required to work when and where. The county's never going to be able to list the same people with each new emergency as to you are essential, but I'm not, or I'm essential and you're not. But there's no reason why it can't be 100% clear what services are essential. Most of the services that are essential are backed by some sort of government code, some sort of law somewhere. So there's no reason why this can't be clear. So that's another thing that's being worked on. We'll get back to that. So that's what we've been working on with the county, the demands and the other activities that we're doing. We will get back to you on that. We're hoping to meet again with them this week. We're still waiting on their availability. Worst case scenario, it's going to be early next week. So fingers crossed we can get back in there soon. This section is, to me, the most important. There's a lot more in it than you might think, resources and info. So the first and biggest piece are just briefly going over what our leave and compensation options are right now, especially if we get sick, a family member gets sick, or we have a child who's home and has nowhere to go because their daycare or their school is closed due to the coronavirus. So the first thing I want to talk about before I go into any of the specialty time off is a reminder that we were all gifted about 80.9 hours of sick time. That was not originally intended to be a gift. It was an advance. It should have arrived in Time Saver for you, I believe, in late March at the latest. And again, it was about 80.9 some odd hours. And it was going to be a situation where you could use it now, but because of the amount of hours that were gifted to us, we would not accrue additional sick time for about 22 pay periods, if I remember correctly, or 22 weeks it could have been. It was an extended period of time. And so essentially they were just paying us early for this time. Amazingly, it's no longer in advance. So this is sick time now that we all have. We're not paying for it in that regard because we will continue to accrue sick hours as normal. There is no more advance and there's no pause on the accrual. So heck yeah on that, especially right now because people are going to be needing it. In addition to that general regular old sick time gift, we're going to be talking about disaster paid not worked, emergency paid sick leave, and EFMLEA, god-awful acronym, Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion. So let's go back here and talk about it. So if you're not sick, you want to work, but you have no option to work because your workplace is closed or there's no option to telework, you right now are in a status called disaster paid not worked. It's like being on call. You're staying in this status until it expires. You don't have a finite amount of hours. It's just an amount of time where you're getting paid. So it's a duration on the calendar. Right now, like I mentioned before, if you are extra help, this status will run out as of the 21st of this month. The last day that you'll get paid that status, regular pay, disaster paid not worked, will be the 20th. So the 21st would be the first day that if you're on call and you're not working your hours because there's no way for you to work, you're not going to be getting paid. Regular employees who are not extra help have at least until the 5th of May. That would be the last day. That's probably going to get pushed forward if the shelter in place is expanded. That date has moved several times and it has matched the duration of time that the shelter in place has been in effect. So they're not going to stop paying regular employees who are on call, willing to work but unable. It's probably just going to get pushed back again if that happens. So again, you're not sick, you want to work, but you can't. You're getting paid right now, disaster paid, full pay. The second personal scenario you might be going through is, if not now or in the future, you're sick, you're homesick, you're not working from home, there's no teleworking happening. What are your options? What can you use? How are you going to get paid? The first thing you'd probably want to do is use up this specialty paid sick leave. Now, this is not disaster pay not worked, because those are for folks who want to work. You're sick, you're at home, you're not teleworking. You have 80 hours, and this is not the 80 hours we were talking about before. These are specialty sick hours, emergency paid sick leave hours, exactly 80 hours available to you. So if you happen to work 40 hours a week, that's 2 weeks of emergency sick pay. By using this, you are not dipping into your own accrued hours. So that would probably be your best bet, because this is a This is being paid federally through the state. It's being paid and it's only going to be available until the end of this year at this point. So you would want to use those first. God forbid, after those hours are used up, you would start to dip into your own accruals using your own sick time, which you have at least around 80 hours in your bank because of the gift that you received, in addition to whatever else you've had accrued. And that goes for sick time, vacation, comp time, anything you've got. Worst case scenario, if you are continuing to be sick after that amount of time and you are a union member and you are contributing toward your short-term disability coverage, you would probably want to apply for short-term disability. And I'm planning on making a video about that in the near future for folks to understand a little bit more about that incredibly important benefit that they have and that they're paying for. If you are not an SEIU member, you do not have it. So keep that in mind. If you know anyone in your office who might not be a member but might need to use this, let them know. So again, if you're sick, use those specialty 80 hours EPSL. Then you would dip into your own sick time, which thankfully you've got significantly more of. And then worst case scenario, if it's a really long-term thing, you would apply for short-term disability, which is a 7-week period, which I'll get more into on a separate video. The next scenario, if you are home and you are caring for a loved one who is either sick or in required quarantine. So you're not working, you're not teleworking, you're home because you're caring for an immediate family member in your home. So it's pretty much the same thing as before. If you were homesick yourself, you can still use those emergency paid sick leave hours, those EPSLs. Use those first because they do have an expiration date. And then you can dip into your own personal sick time at that point, the one you got a big bump on. You would not be able to apply for short-term disability if you were caring for a sick or quarantined loved one because of the fact that short-term disability is only for your own illness or injury. So this is a potential issue if you were home with a sick or quarantined loved one for more than a month or two. We'll get into that in a future video. So here's the big boy. Let me get this out of the way here. If you are home because your child, if you're home because your child's school is closed or their daycare is closed due to the coronavirus and you're not teleworking, you're home with your kid, you're not working, there's no place for them to go, and it's probably not smart to send them anywhere anyway, what do you do? So remember those special 80 hours of EPSL that are going to expire at the end of the year? Use those bad boys up. In the meantime, you are going to, if you apply, you're going to be in a 2-week waiting period for this new special expansion of FMLA called EFMLEA. It's called the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion. You want to apply for that ASAP if you're stuck home with your kid because of the fact that there will be a 2-week waiting period in which you could use your EPSL hours or any other accrued time, but there'd be no reason not to use them because they actually expire, unlike your own accruals. So one thing about this EFMLEA time is that you will be getting paid 2/3 of your usual wages. So you're actually not going to get paid that. It's only going to cover that because that extra third, that additional third, you must supplement. So whatever accrued sick time, vacation time, comp hours you've got, and thankfully you've got quite a few sick hours, you would use those to fill up that remaining 1/3. And that's so you can meet what they call the FTE or full-time equivalent in order for you to maintain your benefits, your health care, your benefits. Now, worst case scenario, you're in this position and you're covered for 10 weeks on this, but at some point during those 10 weeks, you run out of your accrued hours. Thankfully, you're kind of only using them at 1/3 of the rate as before. But if you ran out of them, the county would be required to supplement that remaining 1/3. you have to be at 100% FTE. So it would be a real bummer to have run out of all of your accruals, but you don't have to worry about not getting paid your full wages because the county will be required to pick up that extra third. So brief recap. If you're on call, you're not sick, you're willing to work, but you can't, right now you're in that DPNW or disaster paid not worked status. If you're extra help, that will be running out last day on the 20th of this month. And we're working with the county on making sure that extra help is protected if they continue to be stuck at home with no place to work. We're trying to get them jobs at the EOC, trying to get them assignments anywhere we can. But if you're a regular employee and you're stuck at home because you have no place to work, that status is going to last until 5/5 and probably longer if this continues. If you're sick, you're home, you have 80 specialty hours available to you on top of the 80.9 regular old sick hours that you have in your accruals, in addition to any other accruals. And if longer, you can just apply for short-term disability, which we'll do a separate video about because it's a whole thing. If you are homesick caring for a loved one who is either they're sick, or they're in quarantine and you're not teleworking, same old thing, use those EPSL specialty hours. After that, you could use sick time, vacation, comp time, anything you've got accrued. Now, we can talk about it in a future video as to FMLA, but there is a potential issue if this loved one of yours is sick for a time that's longer than that, which generally speaking, depending on what you've accrued, can be anywhere from 2 to 3 months, maybe less, then you have potential vulnerability. And so we're working on the county with that. Hopefully your loved one would not be sick that long. And lastly, if you're stuck at home, you're not teleworking because your kid, their school is closed or their daycare is closed, it's kind of the most expanded option here. You've got those specialty 80 EPSL hours. In that time, you'll be applying ideally for this expansion, the really long acronym that lasts 10 weeks, which is technically up to 12 weeks at that point. You have the 2-week waiting period, 10 weeks of 2/3 pay. You supplement the remaining 1/3 with what you got. If you run out of what you got, the county will take care of it themselves. So real rough. It doesn't help that our gifted sick hours are 80.9 and this specialty EPSL happens to be 80 as well. Don't mix them up. You've got your own you got your own sick time that's gifted to you, but these EPSL hours are in addition to that. Okay, so let's get to this. So we covered the sick time gift, disaster pay, emergency paid sick leave, the god-awful EFMLEA, short-term disability we briefly touched on, but we'll touch on more later. You have existing leave options in addition to these. They're pretty specialty speaking. There's paid parental leave if you're about to adopt, foster, or give birth, things like that, and we can talk about those in the future. But remember that they're there, and I'll show you where to find a great spreadsheet of them. The second resource and piece of info that I wanted to go into for you guys is mortgage and rent relief. We have a housing assistance fund. The SEIU partnered with the county in, I believe, somewhere around 1990 to get this fund going. And for several years, recent years, the funds ran out and there was no money, but it is funded right now. There is money there. And there are different very low interest loans that you can get, housing assistance when it comes to your mortgage or when it comes to rent, including deposits if you're undergoing a hardship. Let's go ahead and look at that really quick right now. So the rental and mortgage assistance program, there's different types of assistance that you can get. Rental security deposits, first month's rent, delinquent rent or mortgage, real estate taxes even, expired hazard insurance. If you've been paying into this housing fund, which everybody is, for a minimum of 13 pay periods, so you're not brand new, if you meet these requirements, if you are an SEIU member, if you are a permanent full-time or part-time or extra help employee, which you'd have to be one of those, the loan terms are a 3% interest loan. Eligible, $2,500 if you're full or part-time, $500 if you're extra help, and the payback period is pretty nice, unlike anything you'd ever find at a bank. There's a great website here. This is the county website. They have a great page. Maria is really sweet. I know her personally because we're on the committee together. She's extremely helpful and she wants to help. So please consider it if you're undergoing a hardship. We can help and we want to help because you're paying into this yourself and this exists for a reason. We live in a very expensive place. So again, that was the Housing Assistance Fund. And there's also information on this page here about the eviction moratorium in the county right here. And there's also a couple of the Consumer Finance Agency pieces of info that are really kind of a wealth of info when it comes to mortgage relief options, including who owns your mortgage to see whether or not it's federally backed, because that is important. Stay awake, we're almost done. Oh yeah, all right. And then lastly, your union contact info right here. Just want to make sure you've got that. And I'll get that to you as well. SEIU has their own webpage for coronavirus stuff. It's straight up SEIU10to1.org/coronavirus. They've got new and recent updates, what we're demanding from our employers, all sorts of general resources. They even have their own email address if you've got additional resources that you need or would suggest. This phone number here, 877-687-10-1, is the Member Resource Center. I've had to call it many times. They're actually pretty darn great. They're open 8 to 6, Monday through Friday. That's available to all members. They can find what you need. Field reps, Diego and Michael. Chapter officers, Jana, that's me. Debbie Steen, our amazing chief steward. Contact info here. Facebook group information. And this is also going to be important to make sure if you are concerned about the standards when it comes to what's required of the county to ensure that our work site is safe. If you feel conditions are less than safe, check them out right here on this link. And if for some reason they're not meeting OSHA standards, you got them and contact us. I'll make sure that you know where to find this form. So to get back, okay, so I'm also going to make sure that you have information on where to find your MOU. And everything that we just talked about is in a shared Google Drive, and I'll let you know where that is too. So we're going to close this bad boy out. I know that this was a long one, but I wanted to start getting used to doing this at the end of each of these. Just a brief rundown of a couple of fun things that happened this week in labor history. So the first one I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is that this week in 1880 saw the birth of Frances Perkins. She was coined the Saint of Labor Day. She was a workers' rights advocate. She was appointed as the Secretary of Labor under President FDR in 1933. She was the first woman to hold a cabinet level office. She was a trained social worker. She was a master negotiator. She was an advocate of workers' rights. Witnessed all sorts of hardships by workers, both before and after the Great Depression. As the Secretary of Labor, listen to this, she crafted policies hoping to alleviate societal ills like unemployment and poverty, and her legacy includes Social Security to support workers with disabilities and in old age, the 40-hour work week, the minimum wage, and the end of child labor. And if that wasn't enough, she also built the nation's unemployment benefits system. Now, it's not her fault that it kind of sucks now, but she built it. I mean, it's incredible. So Frances Perkins, kudos to you. She was born this week in 1880. Labor leader, community organizer, civil rights activist, and feminist Dolores Huerta was born this week in 1930. With Cesar Chavez, she co-founded what eventually became the UFW, United Farm Workers. Incredible organization. Please donate to them regularly. Huerta organized workers. She negotiated contracts. She advocated for safer working conditions, including the elimination of harmful pesticides. She led so many incredible strikes. She fought for unemployment and healthcare benefits for agricultural workers. In '73, she led a consumer boycott of grapes that resulted in the groundbreaking California Agricultural Labor Relations Act of 1975. It allowed farm workers to form unions and to bargain for better wages and conditions. Absolute heroine. She's still alive and with us today, and she's still working her butt off. Take a break, sitting there with Freddie Mercury in that picture. I'm kidding, that's not him. And thirdly, this week in 1997, dancers from the Lusty Lady Club in San Francisco's North Beach ratified their first ever union contract by a vote of 57 to 15. They won representation by SEIU Local 790 the previous summer, and the club later actually became a worker-owned cooperative. There's a really great podcast about these folks. It's episode 20 of the Working Class History podcast, if you're interested. And we'll just close with an awesome quote by Frances Perkins over here on the left. A healthy discontent keeps us alert to the changing needs of our time. So we'll go ahead and stop sharing right there, and we'll wrap it up here. Please go to the Stand Up Sonoma County website or webpage on Facebook. It's going to have the link to the shared Google Drive where all of the forms that I just showed you will be placed. It's available to everyone. Please share the link far and wide. It's available to all members. My contact information is JanaBlunt, SEIU, @gmail.com. And my cell phone number is 849-3752 if you want to call or text if you have concerns. Anyway, if you celebrate Easter, happy Easter. If not, hope you had a great weekend. See you next time.